Hello friends, I'm the Dyslexic Cosplayer, and it's time for us to take another look at Blake 7, this time episode 17, Horizon. So, heads up everyone, this episode's probably going to be a little heavier than I mean it to be, and longer than I want it to be, but that's because there's some real-world history stuff that we're going to have to talk about as part of this review. With that being said, let's buckle up and have a good time. So we open on the crew of the Liberator feeling completely and utterly worn out and exhausted. Apparently they've been on the run and dealing with so much stress that it started to take physical tolls on all of them. Even Villa, the most happy-go-lucky member of the crew, has a stomach condition as a result of all the stress he's been under. Huh, I guess they must work at BioWare having that many stress casualties. Heyo! But they've managed to find their way to the middle of absolute nowhere, or at least as middle of nowhere as space can get, only to find a Federation freighter like the one that was transferring them to Cygnus Alpha heading out into the beyond of beyond, visiting a planet called Horizon, a planet that neither Aurak nor Zen have any information on. Blake decides to maintain course.
You're not going to follow the freighter all the way out to Horizon.
Why not? I'm curious. Oh, you are curious. I'm glad we have a worthwhile purpose. So I briefly want to mention some of the golden stuff that you get from classic British sci-fi, like this deterrent to keep other spaceships from visiting Horizon that is really a very cheap and lazy special effect. It doesn't affect the episode at all, that's the only reason I'm even mentioning is just because it's so silly. The only plot relative reason I can see for it being here is to show that just this little bit of stress is enough to send Villa into spasms of agony. Callie saying that if they don't find some way to relax and relieve all this stress, they're going to be doped to the gills and practically killing their livers. But finally realizing his management style is causing that much damage to his team, Blake considers perhaps they should try and go down to Horizon and see if it would make a good vacation spot, deciding to take Jenna on the away mission with him. In private, Jenna's smart enough to realize that there's more than just one reason Blake wants to go down. Blake admitting that he wants to try and see if he can use the people of Horizon to form a resistance headquarters, since it's far enough out in the middle of nowhere and enough trouble that the Federation might leave them alone. And he's also taking Jenna along partially because that way Avon is less likely to try and steal the ship, since he won't have a pilot. The surface of Horizon is lovely for the cheapest set that BBC Studios could pull together that wasn't a rock quarry for a change. Which is ironic since the locals are being used as miners to excavate metals. Though while Jenna and Blake are wandering around, they're spotted on security cameras by Federation Citizen Rowe, leader of the planet Horizon, ordering the Federation guards with the help of one of the locals to subdue Blake and Jenna and bring them in for questioning. What are those things on their wrists? Some sort of communicator, sir. Bring them both to the palace. Remove the communicators. And once again, we come with contrived reasons to remove the teleport bracelets. This really is a running trend. Up on the Liberator, the crews become concerned that they can't seem to get a hold of Blake or Jenna.
I think they're in trouble.
You just think so?
I feel it.
Wonderful. We have all the resources of Zen, Aurak, and the Liberator, and you feel they are in trouble. You do not feel it, you reason it. They have not called in, therefore they must be in trouble. You do not have to be telepathic to figure that out. Dude! Shot fired across the bow of the Enterprise! Someone called Dr. Troy for that burn! Ouch! But given the severity of the situation, Gan and Villa decide to go down to the planet to go look for Blake. And then there were only three left aboard the Liberator. Back over at Rowe's palace, Blake and Jenna have been tied up to these incredibly uncomfortable torture beds. Definite props to both the main actors for putting up with these conditions for as long as they had to get the scenes right. Though, incidentally, I do find it interesting they all still have their clothes on. Huh, there are benefits to being a main character, I guess. As part of trying to get information out of Blake, Rowe admits that he is the ruler of this planet. I thought it was a Federation colony. I dislike the word colony. Ow. Which word would you prefer? I rule here, and you are my prisoners. I dislike the word prisoner. So eventually we get some details filled in. Ro is king of Horizon, but he gives great deference to the Commissar, the Federation's representative here on Horizon. He was good friends with Ro's father before his untimely death, and even taught Ro at the Academy. And yeah, for the record, he's just credited as the Commissar in the credits. He also has some interesting views on people who dissent against the Federation. I think they're resistors.
Oh, really? I've heard of those resists, but I've never seen one before. This should be interesting.
Yeah, and I've heard of Murphy's demons, the ones that rebuild the universe every 30 seconds and occasionally forget to put stuff back. But I've never seen them, therefore it must be true. We cut back over to Villa and Gan arriving on Horizon, only for them to be taken out a few minutes later by some more of the locals. I mean, seriously, the only good thing to come out of this scene is Villa's scream of agony when he's shot. Back over with Blake, he pretends to break under this really terrible torture effect, and we learn a little bit more about why the Federation is so interested in Horizon. The metal that they have on the planet is being mined out for spaceships designed to visit other galaxies. However, it's incredibly radioactive, so they needed a nice slave population to mine it, since it was likely to kill everyone who was sent into the mines otherwise. Blake explains that this is all a plan to try and use up the resources of the planet and use it as a booster planet to expand the Federation's empire once all of Ro's people are dead. There's a nice little bit of back and forth between Ro and the Commissar where you can see that though Ro respects him, he does chafe a little bit at being under the boot heel of the Federation, rejecting the assertion that his people were little better than cavemen before the Federation. They had a culture. It wasn't as sophisticated as the Federation, but they weren't savages by any extent. After the Commissar makes good his escape to give Ro a chance to cool off a little bit, we get to my utter embarrassment of this episode. It's when Blake reveals the real reason he came to Horizon, or at least the reason he gives Ro. I'm not certain he really planned on it beforehand. One of your subjects, I presume. At least he spoke of Monopasium 2349, and he spoke of someone named Ro. His name was Pora. So I'm 90% sure this was a retcon they made later, but yeah, this is Pora in Spacefall. I didn't bother really mentioning him much because for all that he is a minor character in the episode, he basically dies halfway through when he inadvertently gets coated in that same sealant stuff that hardens in seconds. Part of why I'm suspicious is he tells Ro that Pora was thrown out of an airlock. But either way, I think it's a decent bit that I probably should have mentioned in Spacefall, but I just completely forgot about up until now. Ro rejects Blake's assertions, though one thing I do like is he takes out a little bit of time to help give Blake and Jenna something to drink after they've been tortured. Eventually the Commissar comes back and asks Ro what he wishes to do as King of Horizon. So Ro decides to send them to the mines to go work until they decide to come to their senses and allow them to capture the Liberator. Unfortunately, they'll be waiting a while. Also in the mines, we meet Ro's ex-girlfriend, who was sent off to the same training Ro received but didn't take as well to the indoctrination, and when she returned started to lead a resistance. So Ro was forced to exile her to the mine to die in servitude. There is one scene I want to talk about because it really makes me kind of uncomfortable. We can see the locals fighting over the food and acting barely better than savages, until Blake, the blue-eyed, white-skinned savior, comes along and teaches them how to share equally. I'm sorry, this borders on the white savior trope a little too much for me to feel really comfortable. Back up on the Liberator, Callie's found some interesting information thanks to Aurak that she feels she needs to give to everyone back down on the planet's surface. Avon doesn't want her to go since everybody else has disappeared, but she's going to go no matter what he thinks. However, surprise, surprise, he loses contact with her as soon as she lands on the planet's surface. It's almost like maybe this is a really bad plan. And then there was one. Aurak. No further information is necessary on the planet Horizon. Down on the planet, Callie is being tortured by Ro and the Commissar. Wow, this is Grand Central Station here. She reveals to Ro the information she got from Aurak. Turns out the Commissar assassinated Ro's father so that they could put Ro in the position of king, thinking he would be more malleable and suitable to the Federation's plans. And psychically warns him that if he's not careful, he'll do the same to get rid of Ro. And in the next scene, we can see that he's definitely starting to become conflicted as he watches his girlfriend suffering in the mines. If she is to die, it mustn't be there. Like that.
She is a bad influence. She was dismissed from the Federation training complex for disobedience. She tried to make trouble here against the Federation. It's best to leave her where she is.
You're forever telling me to act like a ruler, and when I do, you say I'm wrong!
Yes, that's true. Very well. Tell them to release her.
I get the feeling this relationship is not going to last much longer somehow. And not just because I've watched the episode. Back up on the Liberator, we get a very interesting scene that reveals a lot about the character of Avon, as he semi-debates with Aurak about the merits of abandoning the crew and saving his own sorry hide. It's kind of interesting since it seems he's running through all the logical reasons to abandon them, and concludes the only reason not to is if he had to go toe-to-toe with 3 Federation pursuit ships, with only the automatics and a no real crew. Ironically, a short time later, he's informed by Zen that 3 Federation pursuit ships have entered the solar system and are headed straight for Horizon. Again, I don't think he would have actually abandoned them, but I do like it being a way to reveal what it takes to force Avon to become emotional. Like he said back in the duel, he doesn't understand the need to become emotional just to show you care. So, nice touch there. Better prepared by Aurak, who warns him about the security cameras that will alert them to his presence, so Avon is able to take them out with a couple of blasts from their blasters. The loss of the cameras seems to be freaking everybody out, especially Ro's girlfriend, fearing that this may be part of an assassination plot by the Commissar. I do like the fact that Ro, realizing this may be true, orders her to leave the palace so that he can sacrifice himself to save her. It's a little thing, but it does a good job of showing why he is fit to rule without the Federation. Back up on Liberator. Oh my god! Fully shirtless Blake! They went there, ladies and gentlemen! They went there! He's just so doughy. Unfortunately, the Commissar finds Ro's girlfriend and thinks that her attempt to flee is part of some sort of plan with Blake and his crew to destabilize the situation here on Horizon, so tortures her for information. When it seems the torture might kill her, Ro orders them to stop. And it's very clear this is the turning point in their relationship dynamic. Though the Commissar out and out admitting he was going to assassinate Ro if he seemed to be betraying them probably wasn't a great move on his part. Later, when the Commissar is alone, Ro decides to return and I'm sorry, that headdress is so silly. But Ro uses a poison dart to get rid of the Commissar.
I thought you were one of us, Ro.
No, I'm not. It seems I never was. Back up on Liberator, everyone is thoroughly ready to get out of there, but Blake is down on the planet aggrandizing with Ro. Ro is appreciative for Blake's help in killing the Commissar and helping him see the light, so promises that they will always be welcome on Horizon, and that they will join in Blake's revolution against the Federation. Even if it means their lives and regression back to their old ways, at least they will be themselves at that point. Back up on the Liberator, having somewhat worked off their stress by being trapped in a radioactive mine and realizing there are far worse fates, they decide to abandon the system ahead of the pursuit ships, rounding out the episode. Next! Horizon is one of the better-paced episodes of Blake 7. For all that it's about the same standard length, it doesn't really feel like anything's wasted as far as the time goes. The character development is great, and the dynamics between Ro and the Commissar are fabulous. The only underutilized element would definitely have to be Ro's girlfriend. Besides giving him some character motivation, she really doesn't contribute much to this outing. On a heavier note, in some ways this show talks about stuff in ways that is still relevant even to this day, showing the oppression of native peoples by those in power. Not only does Ro reject the assertion that they weren't even a civilization until the Federation, But there's some other subtle stuff, like admitting they're not allowed to call the planet by its original name, calling it Horizon because that's the name dictated to them by the Federation, and forcing them to conform to Federation ideals and procedures, and any of the locals who refuse to being deemed savages and forced to work in the mines to their death, thus weeding out those that won't conform to the Federation's standards of civilization. It's even heavily implied they're not allowed to wear their native form of dress as a punishment. Part of why Ro putting on the outfit at the end is supposed to be a sign of defiance against the Federation at this point. After all, the native people of Australia were abused for centuries by the British government there, and were forced into slave labor. Even in America, there's a long-standing history of trying to force native peoples to conform with Western standards, even if it means violence. We had some of that just recently at Standing Rock, when the peoples there refused to bow to oil interests. Oh great, now we're doing the same thing up in Canada. It would be nice if those in power would stop being horrible to native peoples because they won't just let them do whatever they want. Sorry, I promise I'll try not to aggrandize too much in future, but especially on this one, there's just too many real-world parallels I had to bring up. At any rate, that's it for Horizon. What can you expect from our next episode? Well, Travis and Servalon are back. We can see what regrowing Twizzler explosives look like, and, in all seriousness, one of the cast will leave forever. I hope you'll join me for episode 18, Pressure Point. Until next time, friends, sign-offs are hard. Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying the Blake 7 reviews, and if you are, then I encourage you to go show your support over at the official Blake 7 YouTube channel. And in speaking of support, I do all of these reviews as well as my fan films and my costume tutorials for free. So if you want to give me a little bit of cash to show your support and appreciation, I have links to my Patreon page below, as well as any other requisite links you may need. Until next time, have fun!